we aspire and hopefully will achieve to use archaeology in three main ways in order to understand the development and intensification of the human use of marine resources. And the first of those is actually to look at the development of settlement on the coast at all, because there are times and places when it doesn't exist, or where we don't know whether it exists. The second is to use the actual remains of fishes and sea mammals in those settlements, and also these more distant settlements to which they were ultimately traded and consumed, particularly urban settlements and towns, for instance, in order to look at changes in the scale of consumption, in the nature of consumption, ultimately the fishing pressure that might imply, and then thirdly, if we're particularly fortunate, to actually be able to use characteristics of those remains, in some cases isotopic and chemical characteristics of those remains, to look at potential impacts on marine ecosystems from terrestrial settlement through nutrient loading into shallow seas, for instance, from land clearance, agriculture, urbanization, by looking at time series over centuries and millennia. We have to look at two elements and two goals, which are two sides of exactly the same coin. And one of those is, if you like, one might say economic history, how we understand the utilization of the environment, how that has influenced the course of human history. The flip side of that coin, of course, is that for every economic activity, there is an environmental impact. Now, the scale of that environmental impact, the measurability of that environmental impact, of course, is hugely variable depending on the particular circumstances. But it is always there, even if one takes one fish from the sea. And so what one needs to develop are time series, very long time series, which take us well beyond the instrumental record of the 20th century, for instance, post-World War II, and certainly to centennial scales, and ideally to the scale of at least a millennium, if not two. And we need to be able to follow those fluctuations in order to understand the nature of the marine ecosystem. The reality of any interdisciplinary exercise is that it is both the most difficult and the most exciting thing that one can do in science or scholarship in general. And it's the most exciting because the rewards are potentially huge. It's the most difficult because, of course, we all have our own areas of expertise, our own comfort zones, our own languages, and our own set of methodologies. And the very first enterprise is to find a common language that allows us to speak across those disciplinary boundaries.